Hello friends, I'm AtulDahale and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to look at one very beautiful game played by one of my favorite world chess champion, TigranPetrosian. TigranPetrosian was the world champion during the period of 1963 to 1969 and he was very famous for his active defensive skills. But the game which we are going to look at is not about the defensive skills. It's about his spectacular combinational skills. Yes, sometimes you know what happens in our games, we completely show that we are attacking on the queen side and we focus completely our head and everything on the queen side, and our opponent also assumes that we are attacking on the queen side, but inside our brain we are actually attacking or preparing some attack on the king side, and suddenly our opponent is unaware of that thing and he falls for that trick. And that exactly what happened in this game. Petrosian attacks one of black's pawn on the queen side and his opponent constantly takes care of that pawn, but Petrosian is preparing something on the king side and he is also unaware of one sacrifice was there, and suddenly that sacrifice pops up in the game and his opponent gets checkmated. So I will not tell you what exactly happened in the game right now, so stay tuned till the end to understand the surprise which was waiting for his opponent also and for himself also. So without further ado, let's get started. In this game, Petrosian was white and his opponent was Pachman. It was played between them in Bled 1961. So the game started with knight to the f3, then c5, then g3, and now in this position, black played knight to the c6. Okay, simple looking move. Both players are like trying to play something. Then here in this position, queen g2 was played, and after queen to the g2, black also played g6, and after g6, castling was done. White completes the castling kingside development and black plays bishop to the g7, and now in this position Petrosian plays d3 and now e6. After e6, white plays the pawn in the center of the board. Always remember, you should control the center with your pawns, and here in this position black played knight g e7. His idea might be to play d5 in this position. Okay, so Petrosian just puts his rook in the central file because now this rook is on the central file and it may be useful. So in this position black plays a very natural move. He just castles in this position, but actually it's a mistake. What black should have done in this position is like he should have played d5, trying to control the central squares, and maybe white will just go for e into d5, then knight into d5, and the position will be equal. Or white can even play e5, trying to keep the central position intact, but it did not happen. Black played castle in this position, and after castle white played a nice move. He understood that black has delayed the center control, and white plays e5 in this position. Why is he playing that move? Because now the d6 square is no longer available for black side. Okay, he can play d6, but the pawn will be captured. And also one more thing is there, white's pieces can access the e4 square quite comfortably now, and we'll see what really happened. So in this position black realizes his mistakes and he plays d6. Okay, after d6 white captures the pawn on d6, queen into d6, and which move will you play? Yes, the knight should go to the e4 square. That's why knight d2 is played. The idea is to play knight e4, attacking the queen as well as the pawn on c5, and black will be very uncomfortable defending the c5 pawn. And in this position black decided to play queen to the c7. Why? Because when the knight will jump on the e4 square, the pawn on c5 will be attacked, but black can just defend it maybe with the knight d4 or b6 move, and he will be safe. That's what he thinks. But let's suppose he tries to play something active in this position, trying to create some counter play. Then what happens? Let's suppose he plays the knight to the d4. Then that would have led to a very interesting game which follows with knight e4. The white player is attacking, means Petrosian would have attacked the queen as well as the pawn on c5. So queen c7 is almost forced in this position. And now what will you play? Yes, bishop to the f4, trying to develop the bishop with the tempo, attacking the queen. And if e5 is played, then white has a very nice trick. He can play knight into e5. If bishop into e5 is played, now you can see the bishop is being on the same diagonal of that bishop on f4, and white has a very nice tactical motive, that is knight to the f6 check. Now the bishop is no longer can capture the knight on f6 because bishop into c7 and the white will win the queen. So maybe here in this position black must play king to the g7, and then after bishop into e5 the queen is being attacked. So queen will be played maybe to the d8 square, and now white has a discovered check, that is knight to the d5. This is the discovered check. And now if king to the g8 is played in this position, white has a nice move, knight into e7 check, now queen into e7 and bishop into d4. White wins the piece because there is discovered attack on the queen. So let's suppose he, instead of moving the king, if he plays f6 in this position, then also white wins the queen because he has a nice move, that is bishop to the c7. Now the queen d7 might be played, and then queen into rook into e7. He wins the queen also and the piece also. This is something which was interesting in this position. Means tactical themes are there in this position, but to avoid all these things, black plays queen to the c7 in the game, trying to be safe in this position. And now knight e4 can be played, but if he plays knight to the e4, then this bishop's diagonal will be a little bit blocked and black can play b6. So Petrosian understands that thing and he attacks the pawn from different angle. He plays knight to the b3 in this position, attacking the pawn, and here b6 will be a mistake because let's suppose b6 is played in this position. White can play bishop to the f4, and e5 is not a possibility in this position because knight into e5 is a good move, because knight into e5 will lead to bishop into a8 and the rook on a8 will be lost because it is undefended. So that is not a good idea. So b6 is not there. So maybe in this position, after this move, knight d4 was played in the game, and after knight d4 white develops the bishop on f4 with the tempo. And now here again e5 is not a possibility because only two pieces are supporting the pawn on e5, and white has more attackers like knight into e5, bishop into e5, bishop into e5. White will win the pawn, so black cannot play that move. So black in this position played queen to the b6, and Petrosian understood that in this position he should centralize his pieces. That's very important. Always remember to centralize your pieces, and especially if you can put the knight in the center of the board, that is a good thing. He plays knight to the e5 not only to centralize it but also to play knight to the c4, because once the knight will come on c4, the pawn on c5 will lose the control, will lose the support of the queen, because queen is the only piece which is supporting the pawn on c5. So his opponent Pachman understands that thing and he plays knight into b3, and after knight into b3, a into b3 is a very normal move in this position, but that will give some time for black to consolidate the position. Maybe he can play knight to the d5 in this position and attack the bishop on f4. So we don't want that thing. Petrosian understands the time value. He plays a very nice move. He first of all plays knight to the c4 before capturing the knight on b3, and now the queen is being attacked. So queen doesn't have the c7 square, it has only, he doesn't have the c6 square also. He has d8 square, but if he goes to the d8 square, then the pawn on c5 will be very weak. So he keeps his queen in the supporting manner and he plays queen to the b5, still supporting the pawn on c5, and white plays a into b3. Now there is again a threat is there, rook to the a5, and the pawn on c5 will still lose. Okay, so black is constantly under this impression that the pawn on c5 must be protected, it will go away at any moment of the time. And here to stop rook a5, black plays a5. Now the rook cannot come on a5, but Petrosian again attacks the pawn on c5 with bishop to the d6. He is not only attacking the pawn, but he is attacking the knight also here. And let's suppose black defends the knight with rook e8, then he has a very nice move. He will play bishop to the c7, attacking the pawn on a5 with 3 pieces, and also threatening knight to the d6, forking queen as well as the rook. And if suppose rook f8 is played in this position, then white will just capture the pawn on a5 and he will be pawn up. But that was not something which his opponent wanted, so he defended the knight with bishop to the f6. And now Petrosian brings his another piece in the game. He plays queen to the f3, attacking the bishop, because now if bishop moves in this position, the knight will fall. So he must play king to the g7, supporting the bishop on f6. And in this position, a brilliant move was waiting for from white side. Petrosian was completely unaware of this thing. He still wanted to prepare everything So he plays rook to the e4. I will talk about that move after the actual game. He plays rook to the e4, and his opponent is completely unaware of what is really happening in this position. And because if we take the stock of the position, we will understand this thing, that the queen on b5 is completely tied down to support these weak pawns on a5 and c5. The rook on a8 is bad. Bishop on c8 is also not yet developed. What is this knight is doing? Nothing. The bishop is supporting the knight. This bishop is supported by the king. And look at white's pieces. The bishop is quite good. This knight is also very nice. This bishop is controlling this diagonal. The rook is also well placed in the center of the board. The mighty queen is also there, doing something nasty on the king side. We'll figure it out what is really happening. And here in this position, with a very nice position, black plays rook to the d8, completely unaware of something which is happening in this position. The surprise was waiting for him, and the surprise came on the board. Petrosian now realizes that something is there, and he plays a very beautiful move, that the queen into f6, a brilliant, amazing queen sacrifice. What is happening? If king into f6, which is almost forced, Petrosian played bishop to the e5 check, and after king to the g5, there came a move which is very silent. He plays bishop to the g7, stopping black's tracks to go back in the camp. After bishop g7, the mate is threatened. In 2 or 3 moves, black resigned. I'll show you for the sake of clarity. Let's suppose in this position black plays e5, then white has a simple move. He can play h4, and if in this position king h5 is played, then bishop to the f3. If bishop g4 comes, then bishop into g4 is a checkmate. And let's suppose he goes to the, after h4 check, he goes to the f5, king to the f5, then we have bishop h3, and it's also a checkmate. And let's suppose instead of e5, black plays knight to the f5, trying to get the pieces in the, then white has a nice move. He can play f4 check. If king g4 is played in this position, then knight e5 check. If king h5, then bishop f3 is a checkmate. And this was a very beautiful game that Petrosian's opponent did not realize. And I will tell you, Petrosian also was unaware of the sacrifice which was waiting for his opponent. Instead of playing rook to the e4, he could have played directly queen into f6 check. Yes, actually this was happening, because after king into f6, bishop e5 check, king g5, and the same simple move, bishop to the g7, stopping black's king going back in the game. And after this, even if he plays, let's suppose, rook to the g8, white can play f4 check. If king to the g4 is played, then knight e5 check, and if king goes to the h5 square, then bishop f3 would have been checkmate. So this was a very funny incident also, that his opponent constantly tried to protect the pawn on c5 with his queen, and in the end he got checkmated on the king side with white's minor pieces. So this was a very beautiful game. I really love this game, and I hope you also enjoyed this game, this video. You will share this video with your friends also, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. We'll meet again with something interesting. Till then, take care and bye.